Well, we see that several people have joined our webinar, so we'll start the webinar right now. Today we will discuss the commoditization of eDiscovery. Hi, my name is Pieter Klinkert and I'm CEO with INDICA. We are happy to welcome you to our very first of a series of webinars that we're planning to host in the coming months. The subject of the webinar today will be the commoditization of eDiscovery. Why do we want to discuss this subject? It's because we believe that control over data within companies is essential, and you cannot let it be guided by external specialists only. I will briefly take you through the presentation. At the end we will have a demo, and at the very end, of course, a Q&A session. The entire webinar will take somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. The agenda for today. First, I will tell you something about our company, INDICA, the how, the why, the what, and especially for whom we created this solution. Then we will start with the subject of today. Why did eDiscovery become a commodity? Afterwards, we will discuss the risk involved in eDiscovery. This mainly, of course, concerns the current risks attached to it and the systems which are available in the market. The risks and solutions go hand in hand as far as we are concerned, but there's a lot of ground to be taken. And at the very end, as this is said, we will just share our demo and approach of how we believe to solve the most important issues. Last, you will be able to ask questions. In case you have questions before, you can also drop it to the chat so we can answer it at the end. About INDICA. INDICA was founded in 2013 by two IT specialists. My two colleagues, Pieter Scherpenhuis and Elmar, wrote an algorithm to correlate and rank internal data. The ranking and correlation of internal data is not as obvious as it is with internet data. And they were therefore asked by some clients to find a solution in order to solve problems to the increasing amount of hits within the existing search engines. The concept was to create an enterprise search engine which correlates data on the spot, automated and without any manual influence. In this area, INDICA also found its first clients, some law firms and some advisory firms. Beginning of 2014, we started focus on INDICA full-time and looked at possibilities beyond enterprise search. In 2014, we also had our first talks with KPMG and started cooperating at the end of 2014 and beginning of 2015. They loved the idea of combining structured and unstructured data, mainly for the use of eDiscovery on a case-by-case solution, but also with a focus to more permanent monitoring. In 2015, the system was fully developed in these areas, and in 2016, we had our launch event, April 6th actually, with KPMG, and this is where we also met Value Creation Capital, whom funded us in 2017. Since the beginning of 2017, INDICA has doubled its size and we moved to our new office. Now about the commoditization of eDiscovery. What has happened and where are these transitions coming from? There's a major transition in risk and compliance actually already since the beginning of 2000. Some large problems arose when the amount of internal data started growing. However, on continental Europe, the risk was always modeled. Risk and compliance used to be a sort of ugly and costly thing within companies, needed to have in place, or at least you needed to have a concept about it. It was never actually part of the core business. However, with current regulations and new legislations ahead of us, it should be core business and companies should have more control. In the Anglo-Saxon companies, it has always been a bigger problem, and the financial risks attached to it were much higher. The risk of getting a multi-million fine in the United States or UK are much higher than in continental Europe. This is now shifting. With mentioned regulations and legislations, companies are now facing high risks as well in continental Europe. For example, with the new GDPR regulation, the highest fines can either go up to 20 million or 4% of the concerned turnover worldwide. This will have its effect. Governance, risk and compliance are now licensed to operate. It is not enough anymore to sit back and wait and see. Companies need to have more control over their data, they need to be able to react sooner and more diligent, and this does not allow them to outsource these cases, but to be actively involved internally as well. Control over your internal data therefore requires a permanent solution based on a gradual approach. The value chain between corporate companies, legal and advisory business has therefore also changed. It's not about outsourcing anymore, but it's a two-way street. Let's now look at the risks. What risks led to this, where we are now? A report KPMG carried out earlier this year and in 2016 showed that corporates find eDiscovery tooling too complex and expensive to have in place as permanent tooling. However, there's also the acknowledgement that the following problems arose. It's the amount of data that grows, plus the complexity of the data. So to have control, you need more advanced systems. However, the tools are too complex and require teams of specialists and are not fit for permanent monitoring anymore. And if you look what late involvement can lead to, high PR risk, high cost, and the solutions are not fitted anymore, you have a problem. The market requires something else. It requires, due to the fact that stricter legislation such as GDPR, MiFID II, and other rulings have led to internal solutions. Therefore, there's a lack of insight. The lack of insight leads to exposure, which requires other IT solutions. Chief data officers, privacy officers are suddenly one of the most sought after personnel. Okay, what did we have and what are we looking for? What we have today and what we had is complex tools, not able to solve and to work with by inexperienced people. But what do we want? We want intuitive interfaces. Specialists are now the main drivers of this market. However, it should be available for everyone. Anyone should be able to carry out a simple investigation. It is hard to adopt the current systems, and there's a lot of visuals and things which are nice for the eye, but not very practical in the field. So you need something where little training is required, and you still can get to solutions. Very expensive systems against flexible pricing models are of course also part of this, and you need scalable systems, not only based on databases, but also on indexes, and you need to be able to they should be available when you want it, not as a permanent tool only. So what about today? Today we have our INDICA. I will now show you a demo of how INDICA works. This is of course a very simple demo, and the possibilities are much wider than we can show. But at least it should be able to give you an idea. First of all, to upload data and to index data, we created a drag and drop system. You go to your files at indica.nl, and from there you can simply upload data yourself. As soon as the data is uploaded, the indexing will start. And together with the indexing, and after the indexing has finished, you can create your own tagging and your own tooling. You then go to the INDICA interface. This is, again, the demo system where we uploaded in total roughly 450,000 files, of which 300,000 duplicates and 136 unique files. In the top you see the different shares, and you see the type of documents attached to it, which are inside these different shares. There's of course a workflow where you can add selections of data to more efficiently work through it and keep aside that which needs further investigation. There's a search area, you have the advanced query builder, you have some buttons which I will show later, and you have the possibility to tag different items. The demo is about the following. There's this company Pharmacorp which trades in chemicals. It trades in chemicals, and there's this whistleblower who said chemicals are being traded with the Far East and they are being used to produce hard drugs. This case ends up with either a specialist within the company or even maybe outside the company. How would you approach such a case when you have no clue what to look for and you only know that it has something to do with the Far East? Well, and you have no clue of chemicals actually. Well, therefore, we created the combination between structured and unstructured data. You have a chemical database of 24,000 different items, all descriptions of chemicals which are being traded by Pharmacorp. Then there's of course a debtor database because there's been trading going on. How would you approach? Well, we created this world map. Sorry, it takes some loading to upload all the different data. With the world map, when it pops up, you will get an overview of how communication over the world works. I'm sorry, somehow the data doesn't seem to upload well. Yes, there it is, there it is. Sorry to keep you waiting. You will now see, that's of course a problem with a live session. You never know what really might happen. Well, but here we have an overview of the communication flows within Pharmacorp. We see that there's a lot of communication in the States, in Southern South America, of course Europe, and we see two dots arose in the Far East. One of them, we know there's actually trading going on, there's been trading going on in the past, but one is an odd one out, and that's in Myanmar. So we now have a country which we want to look at. Then we want to have a time frame as well, and we can simply highlight how communication went through time. You see, here you see the first communication starting in Myanmar. And we then want to see if there's any communication afterwards. If we further go through time, we see the dot is actually growing bigger. So we now have an overview that we want of this area in Myanmar, and we have a time frame. If we then double click on Myanmar, we see that 30 different documents are being focused on this specific area in time and place. We now have to go through the selection. If we open the first item, we see, what do we see? Well, first of all, we see how many duplicates there is. We see, of course, the unique ID of the document, and we see the path of where it was originally stored. If we go to the text itself, we see, of course, a rendering of the real text, and we see a that there's been an order apparently of ephedrine. Ephedrine doesn't ring a bell if you're not actually involved in trading chemicals or producing chemicals. But of course, this could be something which is very interesting. We therefore created an Analyze button. The Analyze button will look for connections between the chemical databases, the debtor databases, and everything inside PharmaCorp, all related to ephedrine. If we push the button, we see ephedrine as a substance coming back in the chemical database. And if we look word of road, we get a description of the product. We also see that there's two other chemicals which are related to ephedrine, and we see that there's two unstructured sources. We see an order, and we see, of course, the same mill which we came from. If we look at the description of ephedrine, we see that it's being used to produce methamphetamine. And of course, some of us at least are aware that methamphetamine is also known as crystal meth, and therefore are hard drugs. So we now have something which has some real value to us. And we see that there's been an order for a certain debtor. If we go to the order, we see that 250 SKUs of ephedrine has been traded under a certain debtor number. Again, we can use the Analyze button to see which debtor this is. If we push it, we see that a company called Hermanos has been buying actually this specific substance. We can then go to the specific invoice and see that the actual invoice which is concerned. The invoice itself doesn't mention anything about Myanmar nor about ephedrine. However, the CAS number, of course, is relating to ephedrine, and the offshore location is Myanmar. So without any search, any queries, we found a document which could be the reason why this whistleblower has come forward. We can of course then also tag these as very relevant, or whatever name you want to give it. You can do this through the admin side. The admin side will be available for administrators only. The administrator will have the possibility to create new cases, to create tags, to add data sources, and to modify the system himself or herself. You can see whatever happened. Again, you can go to the cases. You can see what number of documents has been uploaded, missing documents, the sizes of the source, and much more information about the individual data sources and documents which are inside. It also shows to give a complete disclosure about how many docs are encrypted, where no data was able to be extracted, etc., etc. At the tag side, you are able to create your own tags, put them somewhere else, whatever you prefer, and if you have a selection of tags, you can export all these tags. And of course, everything will be logged as well. This is actually the system we wanted to show you, and the discussion between the commoditization of eDiscovery. Do you have any questions?